Shalom. Here we are again today. Praise our Father. As we are going to continue, we'll see how far we get today. In order for us to be able to start winding down our suffering servant teachings. And I am so excited to be able to finally get to the place of what started this message from the beginning. It was all about crowns. And my goodness, that's why the Father has been, that's why I didn't, do anything last week as, I really needed to just make sure that this message is put together. And this message is bigger than what I actually can even understand. And this is why it's so important that it's been able to, the message needs to come across of what the Father wants to do, because this is really the whole reason why He wanted us to understand the suffering servant. Because at the end of the day, He came to be a suffering servant to finally come as a conquering king. He needed to become a suffering servant to resurrect as a conquering king. And that is why when He comes back, He's coming back as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, that He's going to reign and rule for 1,000-year millennial reign. And everything about this message that we need to understand is He has been preparing us for that. I have come to realize, especially within the last couple of weeks, that I have understood more than ever before that our lives are really in the palm of His hand. And if we truly understand that everything of what He's doing in our lives, He's not going to leave us where we are right now. But everything about our lives, no matter how difficult it is, no matter what comes along, it doesn't take Him by surprise. He's got our best interests at heart, and He wants us to run our race, to finish the race and get the prize. Because that's what it's about. And I have understood that we truly have a race to run. And we need to finish this race. And this has become such a reality to me, even in this week. Especially when Monday, when I heard of Joost van der Westhuizen that passed away. And I tell you, that night they showed a documentary on his life. And that really inspired me. As I really started to understand that, it's not how you start your race that's important. It's not even what happens in the middle of the race that's important. It's how did you finish the race in the end of the day. And that's what people do not understand. It doesn't matter how powerful you were when you first got saved and everything that you did for the Father then. But at the end of the day, it's did you endure till the end? Did you finish your race? Did you get the prize at the end of the race? At the end of the day, nobody's looking at the one that fell out from the race. Nobody's looking at the one that started the race, didn't finish the race. Who are the ones that get the prize? The one that finishes the race. And that is why, as I was watching this documentary of Joost van der Westhuizen, it was just so powerful to me as, look at this man's life. He was a man that at a young age got fame and fortune. The world was at his oyster. He had the world at his fingertips. He had the fame, he had the fortune, he had everything going for him. Beautiful wife, beautiful children. And yet, like all of us, is a human being that can fall anytime. And he did, he fell. And while he fell, he was, his name was dragged through the mud. It was horrible. The embarrassment that he had to go through as he had to confront a nation and repent for what he did. But through him repenting, you know what? Unfortunately, something happened in his life. And this disease came upon him. And at the end of the day, it's so funny, people today are not remembering Urs for the fact that he had an affair with his wife, or he had an affair, outside of his, while he was married to his wife, but they're remembering him how he finished his race. And even though he did what was not right, but through this disease that he got, he made a difference in people's lives. And when I watched that documentary, it was such an inspiration to me, especially when they asked him, when you got this disease, did you not ask yourself, why you? Why you out of so many people? Why did you have to get this? And you know what his answer was? Why not me? Why not me? Why not? Why can I not be the one chosen to have to go the extra mile, to become the guinea pig, to be the one that's going to go the extra mile, to start a foundation, to do the research, to go the extra mile that I need to go so that mankind can have an opportunity that maybe for me it might be too late, but I am going to make a difference for others. And his life, he made sure that the remaining years of his life, where he was only supposed to live for 2 years, but ended up living for 6 or just over 6 years, that he was able to live. But he made sure that in that time, his life was going to make a difference. His life was going to have a meaning and a purpose. And if it meant that the Father gave him the fame and the fortune to become that rugby player, so that he could in turn, through his fame, through his fortune that he received, that he was able to be a man that was going to make a difference in the end for those that he was going to come around. And what really amazed me was how they were speaking about him, and while he had this disease, and how they would say there was never a dull moment. He was always the laughing stock of, he would make jokes out of things. He never had a bad day. He would laugh even though he was in a place that, can you imagine the frustration in his body? His mind is 100% fine, but yet his body is not responding to what is sound in his mind. But he could have become miserable and angry and upset, or he could turn to the Father and allow the Father to use his life to make a difference. And that inspired me to say, what are we doing with our lives? Are we running our lives? Are we running this race of our lives to come to the end so that we can get the prize? That in the end, I did everything I was supposed to do to make a difference for my King. To touch other people's lives. Because this is what I realized, you see. The two greatest commands is to love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So at the end of the day, as you commit your life to Him, is it not that you commit your life to Him so that He can in turn take your life and use it as a gift for those around you, to touch their lives? Isn't that what it's about? But yet, somehow, the gospel that we've been given has become so twisted because we've made this gospel that it's about Him serving me And it's about me, myself, and I being on a throne. And where has it been about those that are around me? And so this has given me a greater outlook in life where I'm starting to say, why not you, Natalia? Why not you having to suffer the things that you have to suffer, the things that are going on in your life, the things that come your way, that you want to turn around and say, well, you know what? Well, you want to just be up in arms. I mean, just this morning, we wake up this morning and you know what? Here I'm sitting, putting this message together, and Fundu comes and he sits down and we are having a chat and I'm busy sharing with him about the things that the Father's showing me with this teaching. And I'm saying, you know, some of us have got to suffer. We're going to have to go through certain things, but can we rejoice in it? And know that Father's got a greater plan in what we go through. No sooner are we chatting about this. We go outside and now, you know, he's got to leave, he's got to go to college, he's got to leave. And we're pressing the remote, but the remote doesn't want to open the gate. So we go outside and we think, but then why is the gate? What's wrong with the gate? The motor's busy going, but the gate's not opening. What's wrong with it? And then I touch the gate and the gate opens. And the next minute he turns, he says, Auntie Natalia, where's my car? And his car's just been stolen. And I think, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. What is it? Here we are. I've been up since the early hours of the morning, and how did this car get stolen with all of us here in this house and everything? This car stolen out of the driveway. But you know, when he turned around and he said to me, it's so weird, because I almost had a car accident on Monday. I almost had 2 car accidents on Tuesday. I almost had a car accident yesterday, and today the car's gone. I said, now we are angry and we are upset, but what is the Father doing in all of this? Yes, we are inconvenienced. Yes, everything is gone. It's not right. I said, but maybe the Father has a bigger plan than we can see right now. We don't know. We don't know. And who knows what the Father's got in store? Who knows what the Father's about to do? We don't know. Yet, who knows if the Father wanted the car to be able to be removed so that you don't have that car accident? We don't know. But it was a reality of me sitting over there saying, here I am, once again. I'm just saying to him, that very thing that broke me down, they had just been beaten, they'd been just scorched, going through everything for the sake of his name. And they'd just been put in jail and everything else has gone to him, and they were rejoicing. But can we rejoice when something goes on in our lives that is not right? And this is a reality of what we're facing every day. And this is where it becomes so difficult, because these things are around us and they face us every day. And we go through disappointments, and we go through heartache, and we go through pain, and we go through so many things, but that doesn't make sense. But can we believe that Allah is still on his throne, and that he's still in control? And that which the enemy meant for bad, Father knows what he's going to turn it around for good. And that which the enemy steals, he will restore 7 times what the enemy has stolen. So the enemy has come to steal, but the Father will give back 7 times what has been stolen. Because that's who he is. And so this is a reality of a message that's so close to my heart. And as I've been really struggling to put this message together on the grounds, because I know that you're not going to get a crown without having to endure. You're not going to get a crown without having to be tested and trialed and proved faithful. And you're not going to get a crown unless you run your race until the end. There's crowns that we want to give, but those crowns come with a price, as Yeshua's crown came with a price. And so That's why this was the inspiration. As a matter of fact, the Father first started showing me the crowns before He even started showing me anything about a suffering servant. So He always shows us the good before we even see the bad, because He's a good allure and He has our best interests at heart. And so He's had to go through this whole message to finally birth this message of the crowns. So let me open up in prayer, as then we can start and really go into this message and then see how far we get today. Oh, Abba, my King, I just want to thank You this day. Praise You, Abba, that You are so on Your throne. Even though sometimes we can feel so alone, but You are on Your throne, my Father. Thank You, my King, that when we are weak, You truly are strong. Thank You, Abba, that it's such a comfort to us to know that You have our best interests at heart. That You never leave us, that You never forsake us, no matter what we go through. And that You have a purpose and a plan for each and every one of our lives. To be able to not abort the plan in the middle, but if we put our trust and our faith in You, we will run this race until the end, to be able to receive the greatest gift, and that is to be seated with You in the places, heavenly places that You have for us. And so that we may be able to go through the things that You have for us to go through, so that we have a mark, a destination, and that destination is not what this life has to offer us right now. Whatever it is that this life we're trying to hold on to in this life is nothing, Abba, nothing. No material thing, no physical thing, no nothing that this life has to give us is anything in comparison to the spiritual life that You want to give us. And especially for the kingdom to come, to reign and rule with You for eternity. That's what it's about. That should be our focus. That should be our focal point. And it's amazing, because when we put our eyes on the mark of the prize that is there, it makes everything in between not so bad. Because we look to You, the author and the finisher of our faith. The one who's gone before, the one who's already run the race, the one that's resurrected. And we look forward to that resurrection with You. And so that makes it easier to endure, no matter what. And so, Father, I just want to thank You. I thank You for this message. I thank You for the fact that You can teach us to be suffering servants, so that we can be able to be those crowns in the hand of our conquering King. The crown that He can wear, of the things that we will have done to be able to crown Him in glory. As we have heard in this teaching, there are sufferings that we have to go through to enthrone You with the glory. And so, Father, help us, my Father, to have a deeper understanding. Open the eyes of our understanding, my Father. Open our hearts, open our minds, that we may truly have a deeper understanding of who You are. Truly reveal Your deep secrets to us, so that we are not bound by the things of this earth, but that we can be so free. Because You've set us free from ourselves. Because it's this flesh and the things of the world that keep us bound in a realm that You are not in. We want to be set free from this physical realm so that we can enter into being with you in that spiritual realm where nothing harms us at all. Like Stephen the martyr, that when he looked into that spiritual realm and saw you seated at the right hand of the Father, nothing of what he was going through was even going to disturb him in any way. As a matter of fact, he was able to repent for those that were doing what they were doing to his body, just like Joshua. Help us, my Father, to put our eyes on you. As when we look to you, the things of the world will become so dim. Let the things of the world become dim, so that the things that are about you become so bright in our lives. And so that our eyes will be focused only on you. And that you become the bright morning star in our lives that will shine your lights so that the darkness will no longer be seen. And that the things that want to bring the darkness in our lives will become dimmer and dimmer until eventually it can't even be seen. Thank you, Abba. I pray that we will be those vessels that will be able to shine your light in a dark time. Thank you, Father, for this word. Thank you that you will speak to my mind, speak through my lips, the very oracles that you want to speak now. And that everything that is being spoken will be for the glory and the honor of your name, so that you may be enthroned. I ask you this in the name of Yeshua Mashiach. Amen. Amen. And so, praise you, Abba. So the Father started to do a work with me last year. From when I went to Israel for Sukkot last year. And you know that with me, He gives me little prophetic things. And so I gave you the whole testimony in the restoration plan when I was explaining about the 10 cents and the 10 cents and how He came to reveal to me that we were in the year of Jubilee because of the 10 cents, 10 cents, 10 cents. And this is how He works with me. Sometimes He brings certain things I don't always understand. I don't always have the understanding. I don't always have the revelation of what He's trying to show me. But one of the things that I do know is that I take note of these things because they come often. They're in my face. I cannot help but see it because He brings it to my attention. So anyway, so when we went to Israel, all of a sudden Father started to bring to my attention crowns. You know, it started by us being able to go to we went, the whole story. I started the very first testimony of the very first suffering servant about what we went through at the airport with Dylan and everything. And then we had to land up, our accommodation had been cancelled and we had to land up staying with a friend of mine, Karen. And she has like a membership for the King David. Now I understand, the King David is one of the most expensive hotels in Jerusalem. It is the hotel, one of the top 3 hotels. And we walk past the King David, but the King David wouldn't be the kind of hotel that you're going to go into. But Karen, having Father's favor in her life, she happens to have membership there. And so she'd say, let us go to the King David for like a little bite, something to eat. And every time I would walk in and I think, wow, this is the King David Hotel. And there's the big crown, for the King David. And, so this became like, eventually then she has membership also for swimming, and, there was the one day that it was like very hot, and she said, look, let us go for a swim. And I thought, you're right, in Jerusalem. I don't know where we're going to go for a swim in Jerusalem, And she says, no, we can go swimming at the King David. I thought, well, now we're going to go swimming at the King David. And so, we went 5 times swimming at the King David. And every time I'm looking at this crown. And it was just amazing, because when we were at a time of the month of Elul, you get your 30 days of the month of Elul, and as we come into the end of the month of Elul, then we're going to go into the first, on the day of Yom Teruah, on the first of Tishri. And after the 30 days of the month of Elul, because you've been doing your repentance and everything, I really felt, I said, Father, I would love to, after these 30 days of really pressing into the month of Elul, where you draw close to the Father and, understand, I've been speaking about the importance of repentance and drawing near to the Father, and how these were the 40 days leading up to the day of Yom Kippur. We're also coming to the end of, the Jubilee that the Father had been showing me and everything. And now the Father says to me, I really felt in my spirit that I wanted to go through a mikvah. But how am I going to go through a mikvah in Jerusalem? There's no water around that I can really go and be mikvahed. And it was that very day, that it was on the day of before Yom Teruah, that day that Karen says, let us go for a swim at, let us go for a swim at the King David. And Father made it so that we could go to the King David. And when I came into the water, it was like, thank you, Abba, that at this King David hotel, we are being able to be mikvahed. And that was like, to me, it was a sign of, it's a royalty. It's something of royalty. And everything of what the Father gets me to do, it's never about me. Whatever prophetic thing that the Father gets me to do, it's like He wants me to stand in the gap for His people, for His remnant, for His bride. Because that's what He asks me to do. And so, at the end of the day, it was really about He's wanting to do a work in His bride, that He's bringing her into a place of royalty. And that's what I felt in my spirit. And so, Father made a way that we were able to then, in this time, that we were actually then, able to be mikvahed in this day. And so it was to me, it was something significant that had happened, that it was the fact that He chose the King David Hotel with this crown, and with the fact that it's royalty, it's King David, kingship. Then from there, again, the one other day, we're going to go with Karen, and she wanted to go south, and she says we need to go south, and that day we were going to go south to Arad, at the Dead Sea. But on the way to Arad, she decided, let us stop off at the Dead Sea. We can't just go to Arad and not stop off at the Dead Sea. So let us go for a swim in the Dead Sea. So I thought, well, you know what, we're going to stop at the local beach and, go for a swim, and then when we finish, we're going to go off on our way to Arad. No. She doesn't decide to do that. No. We get treated to the Crown Plaza. And now we're going to go and swim at the Crown Plaza Hotel. So she books us in for the day. You get a day pass where you can book in, and then you're able to use the facilities of the Crown Plaza. You're able to swim at the Dead Sea there. That's got all the facilities for you. It's got a swimming pool and everything, and it's a big crown, and it's the Crown Plaza. And again, it was we're being lifted up. Now you're going to the Crown Plaza. And I'm thinking, wow, Father, you really are showing me these crowns. It's you're bringing your people to receive a crown. It's you are lifting them up. You are raising them up into this place of kingship. You're wanting us to take our place. And this is just what I felt in my spirit. So once again, I look at this crown and I think, wow, okay, you're talking to me about crowns. And it doesn't just stop there, because you must understand, I would walk and the next minute I'd walk into an elevator and this woman would be in the elevator and I'd look and she's got a necklace, and on the necklace would be a crown. And then I'm walking in the shop and the next minute there's this big crown display. And then and so this is how it was. Wherever I was looking, I'm seeing a crown. And this is when he starts to show me that, take notice, I'm showing you crowns. And this is what I mean by when I say that crowns were being shown to me, crowns. Anyway, so then, Elsie had the group, and the group arrived, and then we went on, we started our tour. And as we were making our way up to Jerusalem, the day before Erev Sukkot, we arriving, and this was on the 15th of October, we are arriving. We are going to make our way up to Jerusalem, because we were going to go via the Dead Sea and then swim in the Dead Sea, and then that day we would arrive in Jerusalem, and then the following day would be the evening of Sukkot. Anyway, that night we slept in the desert, and then that morning of the 15th of October, that morning we were going to make our way, we were going to go swim at the Dead Sea, and then from there make our way to Jerusalem. That morning we were all going to go on a camel ride. So, Elsie had booked for us to go on camel rides. Anyway, we all arrived, and each one got allocated their camel, and mine was like right at the back, this camel right at the back. And anyway, I get allocated to this camel, and the next minute one starts asking what's the camel's name, and the other one starts asking what's their camel's name. So I also was inquisitive enough to ask, and I said, okay, what's my camel's name? And then he said to me, your camel's name's Atara. I said, oh, okay, what does Atara mean? He says it means crown. Well, you could have blown me over with a feather. I'm now riding on a camel and its name is Crown. And I'm thinking, oh no, Father, now you blow me away. Because when the Father wants to start talking to me, to get my attention, to say, listen here, I'm trying to talk to you about crowns, then he's going to bring it in my face. I had been telling the ladies that were with us, and I've been saying, the Father is talking to me about crowns. I don't know, everywhere I look, there's crowns. The Father's showing me crowns. It's about crowns. And this is what, I had been sharing with them. So imagine their surprise when they look and they hear now my camel's name is called Atara, which in Hebrew means crown. And they're saying, wow, Natalia, I'd say the Father's trying to talk to you. And I thought, yes, no, absolutely. But you see, I don't always understand what he's trying to tell me. Sometimes I get a little glimpse, but I don't always understand. Because he doesn't always show me the big picture. I don't always understand what he's trying to show me. So you know what? I just say, okay, Father, you're trying to talk to me. I'll get the message sooner or later. Anyway, so the next day was now the 16th of October, and this happened to be Erev Sukkot. So we had arranged, Elsie and I with Karen, we had arranged that we were going to have a gathering of people from the nations that were going to come together for Sukkot, and we were actually going to have this at Ruth Heflin's ministry house, and at Ruth Heflin's ministry house, we were going to have it at her ministry house, and there were going to be the ladies that were going to come from all over, that were going to have this gathering at her house, and this is the place that we were that they offered us, because we were looking for a place big enough to be able to have people come. So we knew there were going to be coming people from Brazil. There were going to be local people that are, a lot of them Sephardic Jews, because I'm a Sephardic Jew. So we were going to gather a lot of the people that were going to come from like Spain and Brazil and Mexico, Peru, depends, from different places that were going to come together. And then obviously those that were going to come from the nations in the house, because they told us that there were people coming from other nations of the world. But we were going to gather, and at the same time, we were a group that was all South Africans, and then we had other South Africans that were in the land as well that we also invited to join us. And so we were going to have a gathering, all of us together, to celebrate Sukkot, which we were so excited about, because, every single time we go, if we don't go to the opening in the deserts, which, it's not as intimate as if you're going to have a thing yourselves that we're organizing. And it was just, a lot of times we go to the land and then we're not part of any festivities, because, the thing is also the opening in the desert is very expensive. Very expensive. So because it's so expensive, a lot of times we don't go to the opening in the desert. And so it was just so exciting that now we're going to have our own little gathering of people coming together for Sukkot. And this year it was so powerful because it was awesome, the fact that we were celebrating Sukkot at exactly the same time. We were on the exact same calendar as the Jewish calendar, which is awesome because we're on the same page and we're able to really come together. And so that was wonderful. So anyway, we arrived, and, Father managed to arrange that we got even Ilichana and her mother that came to sing. And so we were just having an awesome time. And anyway, when Ilichana as she started worshipping, the very first song that she started worshipping, I got so excited, because part and parcel of my call, over and above, that's my first call, is I dance for the Father. That is how He's called me. He's called me to dance. That is my first call. So before I do anything else, that is what I love to do for my King. And this is something that He has called me to do. So, like He said, the prophetic word that I've had is where some people slave it out in prayer, I dance it out. And so that's what He's asked me to do. So you know what? The minute that music started playing, boy, I was out of there and I started to dance. And now, you know what? The way the Father uses me, He uses each one of us differently. And please, I need you to understand, I am not sharing this because, honestly, I'm not better than anybody else. I'm not trying to raise myself up above anybody. We are all servants in this kingdom, and we are all here to serve the King, and each one of us has our place. And each one of us need to do what the Father has required of us to do. And I have understood, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, the other one is going to miss out. Because you need to do what you're supposed to do. The same as one man's sin brings how many to sin? So one man's obedience brings how many to receive the blessing? Just like what happened with Adam. One man's sin brought destruction on all mankind. But Yahushua's obedience brought how many into the kingdom? And so I need to share this testimony for you to understand. I'm not sharing this because I'm better than anybody or that I'm special or anything. I really am sharing this because this is what the Father requires of me. This is my call, and this is what He needs me to do. And this is what I need you to understand. So that we don't share testimony because we're better than anybody or because of any other reason than the fact that I need to share what the Father gets me to do, because it helps you to be able to be set free, or whatever it is that the Father gets me to do impacts not me only, but it's for His body. It's for what He needs to do. So anyway, it just so happened that it was not just, Erev Sukkot. It happens to be my birthday as well, and I'm saying, wow, I'm having a birthday in Sukkot. It's wonderful to be able to celebrate a birthday at Sukkot. And so, for me, normally it's an important day. It's a day that I seek the Father. And so I said to the Father, today, not only being my birthday, but also being a Rev Sukkot, it's Sukkot Eve, where we're coming into Sukkot. Abba, what do you want me to wear? Because that is me. That's my life. Everything in what I walk in is prophetic. That's what He does with me. That's how I tick. So I said, Father, what do you want me to wear? He says, you need to dress in purple and gold. Purple and gold. So that was what I put on. A purple outfit with gold. And everything was purple and gold. And it's interesting because the gold is for the glory. And the purple is the earthly, kingly anointing of the king. It's the purple. Everybody of the purple was royalty. It's the color of royalty. It's the color of the earthly, kingly anointing. And this is what the Father wanted me to wear. So you know what? That's what I wear. And that's what I was wearing. Anyway, I got up, and immediately as that worship music started to play, I hadn't danced for a while, and I'm so excited. It's Sukkot. It's a time of celebration, festivities. I get up, I start to dance, and man, grab flag, and just the whole night that when the music was playing, that's what I was doing. Apart from the fact when the Brazilians were arriving, that then I had to go outside and be about them. But other than that, there I was dancing, because that's what I love to do for my King. I dance for Him. I don't always dance because I think He's going to do something. I dance because I dance for Him, because this is my passion of what I love to do for Him. Anyway, so I was dancing. And you know what? A person doesn't always understand what they do. Anyway, that night, a lot of testimonies were being shared of how heavens opened and how our prayers were going up in bowls and everything. And that evening, strangely enough, one of the intercessors had been given a vision, but she didn't come up and share. Only the next day, on the 17th, this was now the day of the 17th, and we're walking as a group now, down to we're walking down to Jaffa Gate, and the same three little intercessors that were staying in the house, that are the intercessors for this ministry, they came up to me and they said to me, Natalia, I'm so glad that I saw you. She says, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I saw you. And this woman is so excited, and she's grabbing me and she says, oh, I'm so glad that I see you again, because there was something I was supposed to share with you that I didn't share. So I said to her, what is it that you wanted to share? She says to me, you know what? Yesterday, we went in the morning to Sukkot Halal. Now, Sukkot Halal is a 24-hour house of prayer, which is not far from this ministry house. And she said, we went to this house of prayer. And as we were in this house of prayer, we were sharing, and we were praying and seeking the Father to reveal to us what was it that He wanted to do for the Sukkot. And what was it that He wanted to do? What was it that He wanted us to do at the Sukkot? What was the message that He wanted to give? And she says, and so we were praying about the meeting and about coming into Sukkot, and this Sukkot that we're coming into. And what was it that the Father wanted to do? And she said, and all of a sudden, I saw a vision. And in this vision, I saw this woman. She got up and she started to dance. And as she danced, and she raised her arms up to the heavens, and as she was dancing, crowns were being released. I tell you, the minute I heard that, crowns, I started weeping already, because I'm thinking, woman, you don't understand what you're saying. The Father's talking to me about crowns. But then she says, and guess what? Last night, as you got up to dance, the minute you got up to dance and you were dancing and dancing, you were the woman in the vision. You were the woman that was in the vision, that as you danced, crowns were being released. And I said, oh, Father, that's the woman that I saw in the vision. It was her. And I went numb. And I thought, wow, Father, wow. What are you doing? What are you saying? I looked at her, I said, You have no idea what you've just said. You don't have an idea. I said, you don't understand how important it is that you had to tell me this. It's not about me. It's about what the Father has been trying to tell me about releasing crowns. And me not understanding what he was saying about releasing of the crowns. I didn't understand. Now she's telling me that this is what he was doing at the Sukkot. Natalia, as you were raising up and understand what was the color he told me to dance in, purple and gold, which was for the kingly anointing that needs to be released, for the crowns that need to be released, because this is what he was releasing at the Sukkot. That's just gone by. Because we are coming into the time, into the season of this is what he's releasing upon his people. And this is on the 17th day. She didn't tell me this on the evening. She told me this when we had already, yes, day starts in the evening. But according to this Gregorian calendar now, it's the 17th day of October. And I'm thinking, okay, Father, with you, everything is significant. And you know what? I don't always understand. I don't always have the full picture. But I know that Father does things with me in numbers. He does things with showing me things that I don't always understand. So it was on the 17th day of the 10th month. 10 being significant, 17 being significant. And so I knew that day, Father released something. And I knew that the Father is doing something that is beyond my understanding, that I don't always understand. But I know that he's saying through this woman, and I just want to correct something that I said as I'm speaking now. It says you need to correct this. The woman's house is not of Ruth Heflin. It was Gwen Shaw, and it was the End Time Handmaidens. End Time Handmaidens of Gwen Shaw. I think that is what it is. End Time Handmaidens of Gwen Shaw's ministry. And she's since passed away. And Gwen Shaw was a mighty woman of the Father. He used her in ministering in Israel also as, she started up a ministry called the End Time Handmaidens. And this lady is one of the intercessors of this ministry, the End Time Handmaidens, but she resides in Scotland. The three ladies, they were coming from Scotland. So on that day, on the Erev Sukkot, we were, I don't know how many nations that were gathered there from different parts of the world, and we were close to about 70 odd people that were all gathered together, that came from different parts of the nations of the world, that were gathered there together. And the Father wanting to, in the Spirit. You see, remember, Father does things in the spiritual. He needs people to do spiritual release. That's what he uses me to do. That's why he sends me to the nations. If he has to send me to this nation or whatever, when he turns around and says, go to Greece, to be able to go break down the altars that are on the highest mountain in Greece, that all this that came from the Greek mindset on the top of this mountain, that's what we do. This is what he does. And I don't always have an understanding, I don't always understand, but this is what he gets us to do, to go and do his spiritual work of what needs to be done. And it's not about the physical things that get done. That's why I said, first and foremost, my call is a spiritual call. And all our calls are spiritual before they are physical. So this, what I do, is wonderful. I can be sitting over here preaching and teaching. But first and foremost, call is what he's done in the secret that nobody knows, that's being done in the heavenlies for the Father. And sometimes he allows me to have a bit of insight into it. Sometimes I haven't got a clue. But it's okay. What's important is that he can just have a willing and obedient servant to do what it is that he needs to do at the time. And that is why it's so significant that we come into position. Because if we do not come into position, if you're not coming into the fullness of what he's got for you to do, then somebody else is being deprived of what you're supposed to do. So do you understand how important it is that the Father's trying to get us? And that is part and parcel of what I love, is to be able to help people to come into the fullness of their call. Because if I can help people to come into the fullness of the call, then together we cause a body for Yeshua that can then break down the things of darkness in this earth and bring forth His kingdom of what He needs to do on this earth, to reach His people and to do what He needs to do. So anyway, then I realized that from there, really, then what does Elsie give me as my gift for my birthday? A crown. And on my crown, a necklace, and on this little pendant, it's a crown. And this crown says, El Shaddai, the all-sufficient one. That's the inscription on my little crown that Elsie gave me for my birthday. And it was El Shaddai, the all-sufficient one. No matter what you're going to go through, He's all-sufficient. He's all that you need. And this crown, like I said, persisted and it continued. Anyway, when I came back on the one day, I mean, you know what, every time I come back, I must say, like I've said before, I go through this like mourning process before I finally am going to get to the place of where Father starts to speak to me, because I'm still mourning not being in Israel and mourning coming back and saying, Father, everything in me desires to be there. I don't want to be here. And this is how it is for, a little bit of time that I go through. Anyway, on this, so I hadn't gone out much. And on this day I went out, Elsie and I went out. And on this day, it was the 17th of November. So it's amazing, only when I started to put this message together, I started to get the bigger picture. And this is going to blow my mind. It blew my mind. And bear with me as I really have to try and bring you these numbers and these things, because Father really, when He's specific, He's specific. So on the 17th of November, this day I go out. And on this day, the strangest thing happens. Everywhere I'm looking, I'm getting a crown. I sit down, and as I sit down at the table, and we're going to order something to eat, I order an appetizer, and on this appetizer is a little picture, and it shows, it's appetizer, it's, this company of the gold or whatever, that's their 50 years of Jubilee. It's like a 50 Jubilee. And so I see this, and now it's showing there 50 Jubilee. So I'm thinking, okay, we've just gone through a 50 Jubilee. And He's showing me now 50 Jubilee. So a Jubilee, as we come out of this, in the Jubilee, it's a time of freedom. It's a time of setting free. It's a time of coming forth. It's a time of slaves being released. And this is ultimately what was released as we finished this time that we went into last year on Yom Kippur. Then I saw another crown, and I didn't take, it was only by, like that one I happened to notice because it was on my appetizer, and I was actually looking at the bottle, and I thought, wow, okay, that's weird, it's got a crown, but it's actually saying 50. And the 50 is Jubilee, and it says gold. And I thought, oh, okay, glory, wow, okay. And so this attracted my attention. Then I went and I looked at something else, and it was a crown, and it said triumph. And I said, okay, so this is now a crown and it's saying triumph. And so I didn't take notice of what all of them said, but some of them I took notice. I took notice of the one that was the Jubilee crown, that was gold. I took notice of the one that said triumph, so we're going to triumph. And then when I got home, Relene, my friend Relene, dear friend of mine, she's all of a sudden sends me a little picture. And by this time, I had already been given in one day 6 crowns. From the time I left home until I came home, I had seen 6 crowns. So by this time, I've seen 6 crowns. The 5th crown was the one that was the triumph. So His grace will get us to triumph. And now the 7th crown. I'm sitting, and she says, look what Enslin gave me. So Relene's son Enslin, she gets home, or she's sitting at home, and he's studying upstairs, and he comes downstairs and he says, Mom, look what I got for you. and he brings her a picture. And this picture is half a crown and the other half is thorns. And she takes a photo of this crown and she sends it to me. And she says, look what Enslin has given me. And understand, this was the 7th crown I'm receiving in this day. And on the 7th crown, I'm receiving a crown that is showing thorns on the one side and a crown on the other side. And I looked at this crown and I said, Father, what are you telling me? And that's when the Father started to open up to me a suffering servant to become a conquering king. And that's when he opened up to me certain scriptures in the book of Revelation that is talking about suffering and crowning. And that's when this whole message started to be put together. And then this child didn't just give any crown. He gave, I said, Raleen, you do not understand the prophetic behind this crown that your son is. I mean, I started weeping as I said, I can't believe this. Because to her, it was just a picture. But to me, it's an entire prophetic message that the Father is giving me on the 7th crown that I receive on the 17th day of November, that He's giving me a crown on the 7th crown to give a specific message of what I need to preach on this day. That blows my mind. Because, boy, He is on His throne. And only He can do that. So this crown, believe it or not, on the one side of the thorns is 17 thorns. On the other side is 17 jewels. And then 5, like those little loops that stick out at the top, there was 5. And then 5 jewels on the top. The 17 jewels around were like a turquoise color, blue. And then the jewels at the top of the 5 were red. And you know, me, I don't just look at something and say, oh, nice. Because that's me. Not everybody's the same. So now when I started looking at this thing, it really started, I knew that this was prophetic. But now, I've left that crown until such time that now now you understand why last week I couldn't even put this message together, because when the Father started to put this together, it was beyond my understanding. It was just so much that it was blowing my mind. Because this is a significant message that is in its entirety that we need to understand. And so, the 17 were the blue jewels. Okay? Now, it had 17 thorns, it had 17 jewels. The crowns were released on the evening that was on this, that would have already been the day of the 17th, because evening starts, so it was the 16th, but it's already going into the 17th, and it was only spoken to me on the 17th. It was spoken to me on the day of the 17th, but that evening we were already into the evening, which really day starts the evening. And I understand that this is a Gregorian calendar, but understand something. Father does things to sometimes show you something, and He uses whatever it is that is there. And now, then the Father said to me, look up the number 17. Now, I know that the number 17 is very significant, because last year, when the Father had us to do this big work that we had to do in Israel last year at the time of Pesach, we had a big assignment to do for Him that had to really break down massive altars for the Father of demonic thing that's going on in that land, and we had to specifically do it. We had to pray and ask Him what day we had to do it, and we had to do it on the 17th of the 17th of April was the day that we had to do this, because that day of the 17th, that number 17 is very significant to the Father. Very significant. So we're going to look a little bit now into this number 17. Because Ensslin drew 17 thorns. He drew 17 blue precious stones in this. I'm being given the 7th crown on the 17th day of November. Do you think the Father's trying to tell me something? I think He's trying to tell me something. So now we're going to look at the significance of number 17. And then I'll tell you about the 8th crown. Because this was the 7th one. And then I got given the 8th crown, which will be the new beginning. So number 17 is the number, it's a prime number. It is the combination of the sum of two perfect numbers. It's a prime number, and it's the combination of two significant numbers. It's the combination of 7 and 10. And it's the 7th number, so it's the 7th number of the prime numbers. So it's the prime numbers that you get, it's the 7th number of the prime numbers. So there again, it's a perfect number, because number 7 is spiritual perfection. So it's the 7th number of the prime numbers. And then it is made up of two perfect numbers. It's made up of number 7 and number 10. 7 is the number of spiritual perfection. 10 is the number of ordinal perfection. So imagine, this is the 7th number of the prime numbers, which is a spiritual perfection, and it's made up of two significant numbers, which are numbers that are perfect numbers, a number 7 and a number 10. And the number 7 stands for spiritual perfection, number 10 for ordinal perfection. So basically, if you put them together, you're looking at the perfection of spiritual order. So understand what is the spiritual thing that the Father's trying to speak to us in the hour that we're in. He's wanting to bring a perfection of our spiritual order. He's bringing alignment of everything that has to do with spiritual perfection of an order that needs to be. That is why He wanted us on the 17th of April last year to break down an altar that had to do with an evil altar and bring in that day a spiritual divine order, a divine spiritual order, which was going to be His order of how He wants to do things in that land, and break down the altars that is of an evil order that is there. So we need to understand. Father is very specific on how He does things. We need to understand that. Father doesn't just do things, He's very specific. And He blows my mind when He's so specific. Okay. The scripture given for this number 17 is, listen to this, is from Romans 8, alright? From Romans 8, 35 to 37. And there are 7 things that He speaks that will not separate you from the Father. So there's 7 things in Romans 8, 35 to 37. So we're going to look at these 7 things so that we may see that He's speaking and saying, doesn't matter what's going to come your way. Remember, a spiritual order that I'm going to bring, a divine perfect spiritual order that I'm going to bring in your life. That no matter what's going to come against you, you are going to be able to stand. So let's go look at Romans 8. Okay. From verse 35. And this is where he speaks and he says, Paul speaking here, and he says, who shall separate us from the love of the Messiah? Now I want you to make a note of the scripture, please. Because when these things come our way, nothing and nobody is going to separate you from the love of the Father. Listen carefully. Who shall separate us from the love of the Messiah? Shall pressure? Now we've been through that pressure, thlipsis. Remember thlipsis? By now you know that word, thlipsis. Tribulation, persecution, pressure, whatever, tribulation. Shall pressure, shall tribulation, distress, shall persecution, or scarcity of food, nakedness, danger, sword. There's your 7 things. Shall any of that separate you? As it has been written, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are reckoned as sheep to slaughter. But in all this we are more than overcomers through Him who loved us. So you need to understand, these are the things that are going to come in your life. But is it going to separate you from the love of the Father? Oh no. And yeah, He's busy telling you, we have gone through, He's saying straight, listen, for your sake. For your sake. So for the sake of others, you are being killed all day long. We are reckoned as sheep to the slaughter. You will be led like sheep to the slaughter. But in all of this, we are more than overcomers through Him who loved us. Because He will have perfected in you that which He speaks of, which is the perfection of spiritual order, the divine, ordinal, spiritual perfection. And when He brings that ordinal perfection in your life, nothing is going to be able to bring you down, as that is what He wants to perfect in you. So now we will continue looking. Number 17 signifies. Now listen carefully to what number 17 signifies. Number 17 signifies vanquishing the enemy and complete victory in Yahushua. So it means the destruction of the order of the enemy in our lives and bringing in the complete victory of Yahushua. That's what the number 17 actually means. Now, I need you to understand, we've entered in a Gregorian calendar of 2017. And we're going into now, when Pesach comes, I know that there's many calendars, and we know very well that there's 5777. People have got many things that they speak about 5777, but we know that this calendar of 5777, that there's years that's missing, and people have done studies on that, and they know that. And one of the things that I do know is that I know that the Karaite Jew, Nehemiah Gordon, that maybe many people don't agree with him, and people like Michael Rood, and you know what? They have spent hours and hours and hours on a calendar, and according to this calendar, we are going into 6017. So this 17 is going to come up whichever way we look. It's coming up. And this number 17 means, it signifies vanquishing the enemy and complete victory. We're going to get complete victory in Yahushua, which means the Father needs to make sure that in our lives we need to vanquish, we need to destroy whatever it is that's of the enemy, that is in our lives, that is still operating in our lives, that's still keeping us bound, that's still keeping us back, and come into the spiritual, the divine spiritual order that He has for us to be able to come into, so that we may be able to become those ambassadors that He has created us to become, to be able to do the work that He has for us to do in these last days. Please listen to me. It is of the Father that I can't fabricate things like this. How does He give me a crown that comes from a young boy who I think is 13 years of age, and he's just drawing a little crown as he's busy doing his homework, brings it to his mother, who sends it to me, and it's the 7th crown I receive. And now it's given to me on the 17th day. On the 17th day, he's releasing crowns. No. This is too much for me. But it gets better. Let's continue. Let's look at this number 17. During the days of Noah, Allah vanquishes rebellious mankind by the flood, which he began on the 17th day of the second month. Did you know that? Let's go to the scripture and have a look at it. So now we're going to go look at Genesis chapter 6. Let's go to Genesis chapter 6. And we're going to look at verse 10 and 11. And it says, and it came to be after 7 days. Now there, 7 comes up again. Remember, 7 is the number of, it's spiritual perfection. So on the 7th day, the waters of the flood were on the earth. Right? It came to be after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. Genesis 6 verses 10 and 11. So we're starting at verse 10. So it came to be after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second new moon, the 17th day of the new moon. So it's the second new moon, so it's the second month. Where are you?
Genesis 6 verse 10.
Genesis 6 verse 10.
Noah became the father of 3 sons.
Oh no, sorry, Genesis chapter 7. And it's in chapter 7, Abba. Okay, sorry, Abba, it's not 6, it's number 7. Sorry, Brenda. My fault. Thank you. Genesis chapter 7, verse 10. There you go, 7 and 10. Okay. Look, if I have to really start looking into this blows my mind. It blows my mind. 7 and 10. Here we go. And on the 7th day that the waters of the flood were on the earth, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second new moon, the 17th day of the new moon, on that day, all the fountains of the deep were broken up and the windows of the heavens were opened. And the rain was on the earth in 40 days and for 40 days and 40 nights. So on the 17th day, that's when he opened up all, you see, on the 7th day, they had gone in, after the 7th day. So it says, and it came to be after the 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. And in the second new moon, the 17th day of the new moon, 10 days later, then on the 17th day, the floods, the waters of the deep were opened, and everything was then, by that time, it was all finished. He brought an end. What does it say? He brings an end to that of the enemy. He vanquishes the enemy. He brings complete destruction of that of the enemy. Signifies vanquishing the enemy. Complete victory in Joshua. So he's going to bring an end. So, interesting, he brings an end to it on the 17th. But now let's look at when it starts again. 5 months later, remember on the crown there was 5 jewels. Red for the blood of Joshua. 5 months that things are going to happen from, there's 5 months that there's going to be darkness on the earth towards the end. If I really start to go into this, I can't even, because it's so much that it's Father's giving me little clips, it's like I get glimpses of things and it's just so big. So let's look and see. Now let's go to Bereshit 8. And it says, and the ark came to rest. So now we're going to go to Genesis, because the ark came to rest on the 17th day of the 7th month. Alright, so now we're going to go to Genesis chapter 8. Let's look at verse 4. And in the 17th new moon, on the 7th, and in the 7th new moon, on the 7th new moon, so it's the 7th month, the 17th day of the new moon, the ark rested on the mountain of Ararat. Now you tell me. Can we fabricate these things?
No.
This is on the 17th day, and on the 17th day of this 7th month of the new moon, this is the day when he goes and he now starts up again as the water subsided, and this was the time. And the waters decreased steadily until the 10th new moon. In the 10th new month of the first day, the new moon, the tops of the mountains were visible. So it was in that the 17th day of the new moon, the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. So that's the first time that it rested. So now it's this beginning of something new that's going to start. Okay. If we look at when Yeshua resurrected. Okay. Yeshua, it was in the first month